All right. First rule of this channel, we do not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So welcome to the Sit Start Grift show for week 10. Arthur Smith, I feel like there may be something to do with the Falcons head coach and grifting. I don't know what it is. I'll let you decide that for yourself. So here's our schedule coming up here. This week we have the Chiefs, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Eagles on bye. Next week we're looking at the Falcons, the Colts, the Patriots, and the Saints. So any last minute tinkering of your roster may have to do with being prepared for filling in those gaps next week. There's only one game with a weather issue that they're tracking right now, and that's the Washington Seahawks game. And we'll talk a little bit about them a little bit later. Everybody else looks like weather shouldn't really be playing a huge role whatsoever. So we can move on. So Vegas thinks that there's 43 implied points between the Colts and the Patriots. I could kind of see this game being a low scoring game, depending on if the Patriots defense is up to the challenge against the Colts and the Patriots offense is that bad. The Browns Ravens game, 38 implied points between the two defenses. Yeah, I definitely don't really think that this is going to turn into a shootout. Texans Bengals, 47 points. I definitely could see this being a shootout. 49ers Jaguars, they have 45 points. Yeah, good neutral script game I could see going on between the two. And the 49ers defense is not as good as we remember from what I'm kind of tracking right now. And I think the Jaguars are a little inconsistent. So I can see some, a nice, good game should be in the cards, not anything too crazy. Saints Vikings, I could see this one going all over the place. 41 implied points. Saints and the Vikings do tend to run a lot of man coverage and blitz, and with Josh Dobbs kind of being a turnover machine, and the Saints receivers like Shaheed and Olave, I could see this being really ugly or a barn burner, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. Packers Steelers only at 39 points, not surprising at all. I could see that one being really ugly, just like last night's Thursday night game. Titans Buccaneers, this is another one at 39 implied Vegas points. I could see this one going all over the place because of Levis and Baker May, and the run defenses and the pass defenses are bad. I could definitely see this kind of devolving into a shootout, sort of like the Buccaneers got into with the Texans last week. Falcons Cardinals at 43 points. Kyler Murray is going to come back from that one. This could be a really odd game script between the Falcons trying to run the football and Kyler Murray being rusty. I could see this being a really ugly game. I could also see that Kyler Murray is not as rusty as we were kind of guessing, and that forces the Falcons to move from that conservative script into that more fantasy-friendly script. Chargers and Lions at 48.5. This game is going to be a little bit hard to predict. I could see the Chargers getting their absolute teeth kicked in by the Lions, but it's kind of projecting to be a shootout. I don't necessarily think that that's the way it could end up going. Vegas only says shows that the Lions are a 3-point favorite, but I could definitely see the Lions just running away. The Chargers aren't that good on defense, and they may be overrated on offense. That's what my thought process is. The Vikings, or excuse me, the Lions have an okay defense, and they have a pretty good offense. So I could see that script where the Lions just can start putting pressure on the Chargers early, and then it kind of gets ugly. Speaking of games that are going to be ugly, 39 combined points, Giants and Cowboys. I'm kind of 17-point favorites for the Cowboys. That's ridiculous. We'll talk a little bit more about this one, but it's going to probably be ugly in that game. I don't even know if the Cowboys offense is necessarily going to need to show up for this one. Commanders and Seahawks. This is another weird one. The Commanders should have no pass rush on defense. They have a bad secondary. They're going against the Seahawks that were supposed to be good, but then last week happened against the Ravens. The Seahawks are supposed to have a pass rush. They're supposed to have a secondary, which is going to be difficult or put pressure on the Commanders, the Redskins, because they're supposed to be pushing the ball vertical down the field on offense. Sam Howell is a sack machine, but he's been better of late. And the Seahawks obviously haven't been as good on offense as we kind of hoped. I could see this game being very unpredictable, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the 44.5 points is going to be wrong. I just think that like it may be really not watchable. If that makes any sense. Jets and Raiders at 36 and a half. And yeah, I could definitely see this just being a slower slog between the two teams. And the Raiders are only 1 point favorite in that game. So low implied points and a tight low implied points. Very conservative script that looking forward. Everybody's looking forward towards Bills and Broncos. This one I think may actually be a shootout, even though the Bills have a 7.5 point favorite in this one. The Broncos played the Chiefs close 2 weeks ago, and the Bills have been bad on defense. So it would not surprise me if the Broncos can stay closer in this game. And then you always have the variable of Josh Allen being a turnover machine. So that the script could be very favorable towards the Broncos toys. And then the Panthers and the Bears, 38 implied points, but that game, and that game was just as ugly as it was implied to be. So I have my stats here. Fast teams this week are projected by Fantasy Pros to be the Colts, the Cowboys, and the Falcons. I could definitely see that the Cowboys are going to run a lot of plays because the Giants are bad. The Colts against the Patriots, I don't necessarily think that they're going to necessarily have to play fast. I could see that game slowing down, especially on the Patriots end. And the Falcons, they say are going to play fast. I don't know about that one. Depends on how that script goes. Bears and Panthers were supposed to play slow, and so are the Broncos. And you see teams like Cleveland and the Saints, Detroit, Philadelphia, who's on bye. These teams are going to be ones that we were expecting to play, have more plays. More plays are good for fantasy. So moving on, here are my stats from ESPN because ESPN's just got a nice, easy to navigate bar where I kind of draw my stats from. But stats, like I've talked about before, they not only are they deceiving and they can kind of lie, but they don't always predict what happens because even though the past behavior is the best indicator, future behavior just doesn't always work out that way on Sunday. That's why the term even any given Sunday exists for a reason. All right, so first game, Colts versus Patriots. Gardner Minshew. I wouldn't be rolling out Gardner Minshew even as a streamer this week. I think that the Patriots defense is good enough that they could make him be the turnover machine that he could be. And the same thing with I don't think Mac Jones is good enough to be even a streamer at this point. And the other thing with the Patriots, with the Colts going on right now is Jonathan Taylor. They're going to lean more on him. This is a game script where they could just lean on him and not have Gardner Minshew try and win them the game single-handed. So that would mean it's a more conservative script. So that's why I'd be leaning away from Gardner Minshew. Definitely a Jonathan Taylor week. Zach Moss, the cuff. I after last week's 74% snaps for Taylor and 21% snaps, I think it was for Zach Moss. I wouldn't be rolling Zach Moss in this game script out, hoping that you can catch lightning in a bottle. The Colts are bad enough that this is a Ramondre week. Again, the Zach Moss and Zeke are the cuffs. I would be trying to buy Zach Moss as a cuff for my Jonathan Taylor. Zeke, on the other hand, I don't know about that. And the script overall, unless I'm trying to chase Zeke being the one that falls into the end zone, there are probably better, running back streamers to be rolling out this week. I do think this is a Michael Pittman week, and part of that is because Josh Downs is questionable. He hasn't been playing. Remember, the other thing about this game is that this is a 6:30 Frankfurt game. So again, variables I don't like, I can't control. I probably would be downgrading all my toys that I don't need to be rolling out anyway. But Josh Downs, 50-50 start out the play, but he hasn't been practicing this week. So targets have to go someplace. I would bet they're going to go to Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor. If you are getting sneaky in this game, if Alec Pierce can play, he got a full practice in on Friday. That would be where I would be leaning more towards Josh Downs because Pierce is the guy that's going to have the greater upside with Josh Downs being out to win me my week with those air yards. And then if you are a little concerned with Josh Downs out and you want to be chasing somebody else in the deeper leagues, Isaiah McKenzie would slot in to be that slot guy for the Colts. So Demario Douglas, again, I'm probably not going to be chasing him in any of my leagues with 83% snap, 7 targets. I could definitely see that he stays in that range, and you're kind of hoping that this is the week that he gets into the end zone. The cheekier play right now would be the Jalen Reagor, 77% snaps. The Colts have a very bad zone-based defense, so I could definitely see if I'm chasing the more productive targets, it would be Jalen Reagor. If you're really desperate, obviously Andrew Ogletree's out. That's the guy I've been kind of chasing all year with the snap share. With him out, I don't think that there's really any Colts tight ends to even be stashing. Hunter Henry is on the table this week. He may be the leading receiver for the Patriots. So if there was a pass catcher, and I was listening to a podcast the other day, yes, with all the bye weeks and some of these tight ends that are available as the streamers, I think that this is a better week to be rolling out a tight end in my flex type spot than it is to be chasing a wide receiver 3. So between Hunter Henry and his 88% snaps, 6 targets last week, and then you have Mike Gesicki at 86% snaps, which is the other reason why I would be kind of shying away from the Patriots receivers. And then from the defensive perspective for this week, I think the Colts against a bad Patriots defense or offense is not a bad role. Again, sometimes the bad offense outdoes the bad defense. Last week, the Colts were able to get 2 pick sixes and 4 sacks against the Bryce Young Panthers. So I think they are a role. And again, Gardner Minshew can be a turnover machine. So if you're in those deeper leagues and you have to stream somebody and you don't have anybody else available, New England, they're always going to be a good, well-coached defense, which means they always have a chance to put up a good week for you. So I think they are both streamable guys. Moving on, this was one of the big shootout type games that are projected this week. CJ Stroud, just definitely after his 41 points, I would be rolling him out. We're hoping that this stays a 60 to 70% passing team and the running game is dead. Joe Burrows look healthy, so again, he's in that sub-elite category. Devin Singletary, I would not be playing him even if you're trying to chase the 75% snaps. It's not very efficient, and I think like they're just going to be better putting the ball into the hands of CJ Stroud. So if you are having to chase Devin Singletary, we'll talk about some of the other potential guys out there that may be better. Damian Pierce is ruled out. So again, that 75% snap seems intact. Joe Mixon, definitely a role, okay piece attached to a good offense, volume based. Yes, please. I like that. I would be cuffing him with Travion Williams if you're worried about that type of thing. Nico Collins has been ruled out, so now we have to go figure out where those targets are going to go. This means that definitely this moves Tank Dell almost into that wide receiver 1 type conversation, but I definitely would be rolling him out this week. It also pushes Noah Brown into that conversation. Robert Woods is questionable. I don't think they have the same type of role. Robert Woods is going to be like the possession guy. Noah Brown they were using him more deeper and down the field, so I kind of like that. And then if you're in deeper leagues and you want to get a little cute to show that you are smarter than your opponent, John Mechie, he was the first round draft pick for the Texans 2 years ago, missed with cancer. Now he's back. This would be the week to roll him with all the wide receivers that are out that would put him into that wide receiver 3 role. So we could kind of expect that he'll maybe pushing to get about like 60-70% snaps. And those targets have to go someplace like we talked about. So Jamar Chase, obviously he's a role elite wide receiver attached to Joe Burrow. Not a lot to say about that. T. Higgins, he's out. So now we have to find the place that we want to go with those targets if we're trying to get cute. Tyler Boyd, I don't think that he would be the guy that I would be chasing. Again, gonna have that lower ceiling that I would like to be rolling out in this case. I do think he would have a relatively safe floor going forward. The 2 guys that I would be looking at, and I would be looking at from an inactive perspective. So Trenton Irwin, he was the guy that got 76% snaps, 10 for 8 for 60 when T. Higgins was out last time. I think that there's a much higher ceiling. Those are more vertical targets. Those are the targets I like better. So I would be rolling him out. And then, obviously the other guy, if you're in much deeper leagues that I can see his snaps going up is the Andre Io, whatever the name is, the rookie from Princeton that's been lingering. So I can see his snaps going up. I'm not entirely sure that he would outsnap Irwin in this case, but depending on how deep your league is, how crazy you got to get about certain things, but I would expect at least a uptick in opportunity this week. So Dalton Schultz, he's a role. I think he's in that low end. You'll start every week, tight end 1 range. So I would be rolling him out in this game that does project to be a shootout, and he right now would be projecting to be the number 2 target for a good offense behind Tank Dell. The Texans and the Bengals, I think, are both sneaky roles. Like I talked about, more opportunities means that there's more opportunities for the defenses to get sacks and turnovers. So the Texans and the Bengals in a game where they're both going to put up a lot of points, I'm not expecting to get my points from my defense stopping the other team from scoring and putting up yards. I'm expecting my defense to be able to give me points because of the turnovers and the sacks that both teams could generate because of this implied point total. So I think they both are roles this week, especially if you don't have some of the better matchups. All right, Saints and Vikings. I'm not rolling out Derek Carr. I don't think he's ever going to be a good matchup. Like I talked about this week, I think Taysom Hill is really going to cut into his upside because he's never going to probably throw red zone touchdowns. Taysom Hill is going to come in the game a lot in the red zone. So all those touchdowns that take away from him, and then if the offense isn't high enough of a passing volume, it just cuts more into his floor. And then also remember that Derek Carr is probably never going to be a scrambly, nimbly, bimbly quarterback. So he's just going to always have a lower and lower floor because of the situation, regardless of the matchup. Josh Dobbs, I think, is a starter this week with that rushing floor. And then again, with the Saints, they are going to play a lot of zone, or excuse me, a lot of man, which is going to give him even more opportunity to give you that rushing floor. So I definitely think that he can get you to about 15 points, regardless of how the game flow is going on. Alvin Kamara, this is something to monitor. Yes, obviously he's going to be a roll, even though the Vikings tend to just blitz and take away the run. I would be rolling out my Alvin Kamara shares. I would be tracking the downtick in his usage. I don't necessarily think that that's stops him from being rolled. What I do think it does is it stops his, or it's going to cap his overall value going forward. Like I talked about before with Taysom Hill. I think Taysom Hill is probably the fantasy MVP right now, the front runner for that position. If you're cuffing, if Jamal Williams, Kendre Miller is going to be out. I don't think either one of these are necessarily cuffable, but that's kind of the direction that we're looking in. And Jamal Williams does have a little bit of sneaky appeal to get that grinder work going on. Alexander Madison obviously is going to be a role this week. Just he's projected to get in that 70-80% workload. So okay, I always will be rolling those backs out if I can get those outside of when I talk about Devin Singletary. Obviously Cam Akers is out. So if we're looking to cuff or we're looking to speculate and stash Ty Chandler, I would be expecting to see an uptick in his overall usage. He would be the better overall possibility of a league winner with how inefficient Alexander Madison's been. If Ty Chandler can be efficient, they can give him that receiving work and that red zone work, then Ty Chandler would have that opportunity for to be a league winner. That's what we were tracking at the beginning of the year. Because of how much the Vikings play man, I do think Olave and Shaheed is a better wide receiver 3 to be rolling out than some of these other guys because of the projected play that this is going to go on between these two teams as I stumble all over the place. So I definitely think you could be rolling out Shaheed, and I would be rolling out Shaheed over Michael Thomas because I think Michael Thomas is that lower or higher floor, low ceiling wide receiver 3. I'm just not interested in those guys. I would rather roll out Shaheed and have him give me the opportunity to score 7 or 17 points than Michael Thomas hovering around the 7 or 8 point game. So moving on, I think Jordan Addison is a fine play. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 this week, even though KJ Osborne is questionable. A lot of people aren't getting out of the concussion protocol. I think that's actually better for Addison because, again, good pieces attached to okay offenses means that there's going to be all the opportunities going to go to Jordan Addison. I don't really care about how the game plays, who wins or loses. I care about the opportunities going to my toys. And I think this just having KJ Osborne being out actually allows more opportunity to go to Jordan Addison. So I'm okay with that. Definitely going to be a Taysom Hill week. All the touchdowns seem to go through Taysom Hill right now, or a large majority of them. So at this point, I think he's just a set and forget, tight end 1, running back that's playing eligible for the tight end position. So I'd be rolling him out. Same thing with TJ Hawkinson. Number 1 or number 2 option in the offense is always going to be a play every single week. And the Saints and the Vikings are both streamable this week because of the potential or the projection for the gameplay. I could definitely see that Derek Carr could be sacked and have turnovers because of the pressure the Vikings play. And I can see that the Saints, on the other hand, because of Josh Dobbs being a turnover machine, lots of turnovers to be involved. So I guess they're both rollable this week, especially in the streaming variety. Okay, so this is a bad game. We want to be limiting the toys that we roll out in this game between the Packers and the Steelers. No Jordan Love this week against the Steelers. No Kenny Pickett. Slower teams that don't use their toys very well, I just want to avoid. Not a lot of implied points. I would be rolling Aaron Jones out after he had the season high 57% snaps, but he had 26 total opportunities last week. AJ Dillon, if you have to be rolling a guy out in this game, 40% snaps still could vulture a touchdown, so he's in the play if you need to be rolling him out. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, I think, are both in that low end running back 2 area. I think they could be rolled out this week against the Packers, if you're wondering. But again, in both cases, you probably are hoping that Warren can stay involved with the passing game and Najee Harris can fall into the end zone. From the Packers' perspective, Christian Watson practiced in full Wednesday, so he should be a full go. I'm not rolling out any of these toys if I can get away with it. So that means no Romeo Dobbs, no Jaden Reed. Again, part of the reason why I have this up is because the 6th rounder from Virginia, Dontavon, whatever Wicks, he's eating into these targets that need to go to the better toys that we paid our capital for. So I just don't trust this offense. This is a coaching issue. This is a Jordan Love issue. So I'm staying away from all the pieces that I can get away with. Deontay Johnson, since he's been back, he's been a target funnel again. So yeah, I would be rolling him out. I'd be sitting George Pickens, lower pace of play, going to have less opportunities with Deontay Johnson back. So yeah, probably time to downgrade George Pickens overall. And as I say this, he's probably going to go off this week. Luke Musgrave, if I'm really in a bad shape for tight end, again, getting this many opportunities, and I talked about this in the after waiver show, he's up to like 80-90% route participation. So he is going to be a weekly streamer regardless of the situation. And then Muth is still IR'd, so there's no Steelers to talk, no Steelers tight ends to talk about. So Green Bay Packers and Steelers, I probably would be leaning against playing either of these defenses because they're going to have conservative scripts, which means there's going to be less sacks to be able to get. And even though I think both quarterbacks are sack and turnover prone, again, less opportunities for those things to occur in a game where both teams are probably going to grind the game down and try and make the other one make a mistake, which means there's less mistakes for both defenses to get a hold of this game. So, I would probably, if I want to be playing more aggressive towards winning my week, I would not be rolling out either of these defenses. All right, Titans and the Buccaneers. I would be rolling out a lot of pieces of this game because of the defenses. The Titans aren't so super good in the back end, the second half, just like the Bucs are. So I'd be rolling out all my pieces of this game if I can. I could see this turning into a little bit of a shootout against 2 slower paced teams because that's just the way the game script is going to end up going if they can't stop each other. So Will Levis is a roll. I could definitely see Baker Mayfield being able to be rolled out in this game. He's just going to be hanging around top 10 or wider or quarterback 1 numbers the rest of the way. So I could definitely see him rolling out. Maybe not a Derrick Henry week. If you're into that thing, I think there are so few running backs available. I definitely think that you're going to be rolling him out, but just be aware that this is what the Buccaneers do. They're bad in the secondary. They're good still against the run. And to pull up my stats to see if I am not talking poorly, we see the Buccaneers are still a top 10 run defense and bad against the pass this year. So, do what you want with how you're going to run your team. I am cuffing Tajay Spears, and again with a guy that's getting about 10 opportunities a game, as that you're running back 2 this week because I need to. Tajay Spears, that 10 opportunities I would take, and if this devolves into more of a shootout, which I could see happening, that receiving floor is going to be kind of a big deal. Rachaad White, I'm not rolling him out because of his rushing upside. I'm rolling him out because of his opportunities in the red zone and the receiving work. So yeah, he's going to be flirting as a low end running back 1 the rest of the year, high end running back 2. So I'm just set and forget at this point. DeAndre Hopkins, I'm rolling out. I target funnels, yes please, against a quarterback that just can put up some really iffy opportunities, but downfield shots are better than dinks and dunks from a fantasy perspective. No Treylon Burks, so we have to talk about some of the other where the other targets are going to go for the Titans, especially if they have to start throwing the football in this game. Nick Westbrook-Akine, he was flirting with wide receiver 2 status at the beginning of the year when Burks was out before. I would expect that he's going to go up in his snap percentage. And again, he's going to be more vertical than your Kyle Phillips. Your Kyle Phillips, if you want to be rolling out him. Again, you're playing it safe. I don't like playing it too safe in fantasy unless I really need the points. Mike Evans is probably a roll this week, even though he's going to be more boom bust. This is the way he's been going down the line. Chris Godwin again, low end wide receiver 2, boom bust. Just the way that the back or the wide receivers have been shaking out for the Buccaneers this year. This is a Trey Palmer week if you want to chase that upside, knowing that the air yards are going to be there. 73% snaps going up against a bad secondary for the Titans that I think could turn it again. That I could see this game turning into a little bit of a shootout. So rolling out deeper pieces in this game is probably not a bad idea. And again, chasing those targets with Burks out in this game, I could see this being an actual Chig week if you're into that type of thing, trying to get a little cute, a little deeper. I think Cade Otton is going to be a fine play, a pretty safe floor at this point with his snaps and where he's been training in his targets. Titans defense against Baker May, yeah, that's always going to be something I could roll out there. The Titans do have a very good defensive line, so they could just generate a lot of pressure. I like pressure. If the game, in my mind, could turn into a little bit of a shootout, that means more opportunity for sacks. Baker Mayfield can be a turnover machine. There's a lot of boxes to tick about being a sneaky play to roll the Titans out this week. And same thing with the Buccaneers. You're looking at a rookie quarterback that will throw some ill-advised passes and take a few too many sacks. So this is a week to be rolling out the Buccaneers in a game that I think could turn into a shootout. I keep repeating myself. All right. 49ers and Jaguars, I can see this being a really nice football game. Maybe not the best from a fantasy perspective. I'm still rolling out my Brock Purdy shares, with all the weapons that he's going to have at his disposal, him being able to throw for about 200, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and have a little nimbly bimbly is something that I will always take. A nice floor with just enough ceiling to win me my week. I'll be rolling out my Brock Purdy shares. On the other side, Trevor Lawrence, even though I think the 49ers defense is a little overrated this week, again, Trevor Lawrence just hasn't been giving enough of a rushing upside with that consistent passing game. He has ETN, and ETN hasn't been used the same way that McCaffrey has. So again, I probably would be leaning towards not rolling out Trevor Lawrence if I could get away with it. He just hasn't been giving the same ceiling that Brock Purdy has on a consistent, predictable basis. But again, I think if you're streaming and you need to be rolling out Trevor Lawrence, I think he's fine. There's worse guys to be rolling out there than being able to bank on about 15 points. Christian McCaffrey, obviously, running back 1 overall. I'm rolling him out. I have Elijah Mitchell up if you're into cuffing. I don't know how much I would be worried about cuffing CMC at this point. There's no cuff for Travis Etienne, but he may be the number 2 overall running back, so I'm rolling him out every week regardless. He'll get me there somehow. Debo's ready to play. Again, Debo, Ayuk, and when we get to George Kittle, realizing that like 1 or 2 of those guys are not going to get home, but as a boom bust wide receiver 2, Debo and Ayuk are fine, especially in this matchup against the Jaguars. I just don't know who's going to get home this week. Let's see. Calvin Ridley is a roll this week. I was listening to some of the podcasts where they talk about that the secondary for the 49ers has not been as good. And since he's going to get more of the vertical shots, the higher productivity shots, the better plays, I would be rolling out Calvin Ridley and feeling pretty happy about that this week. Same thing with Christian Kirk. If they're going to win, I could definitely see that the 49ers take away the run and it just turns into a 60 to 70% passing game, which from a fantasy perspective, we like, because that'll even get Christian Travis Etienne home. No Zay Jones, so less targets to worry about in this game. George Kittle, obviously I'm rolling him out every week, knowing that he can win me a week, but he can never lose me a week. Evan Ingram, I'm a little less interested in rolling out my Evan Ingram shares this week. I can definitely see the 49ers are at least well coached enough that they will take away the gimmicky plays that they try and get Evan Ingram into the game with. So I maybe there's a different direction that I would rather go than those schemed up plays that Evan Ingram has to live with. 49ers defense, I still think they can generate enough sacks and pressure to be a weekly play. Even though I think they are better streamers out there than the 49ers, especially against at least a not bad Jaguars offense. And the Jaguars are a roll this week against the 49ers, just based off the fact that Brock Purdy has been a little bit of a turnover machine recently. And I would be rolling the Jaguars defense out, expecting that I might be able to get a hold of that. Let's see. Browns and Ravens, and I could see this game getting really ugly. Probably two of the best defenses in the league. Neither offense is really going to have to do anything to in this game other than to not lose it for the other team. So Deshaun Watson, I wouldn't be rolling him out against the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, you paid for him, so you probably will be rolling him out. Just again, have your expectations a little bit muted that he just may not have to do a lot of stuff other than try not to lose the game. This is a Jerome Ford week. I could definitely see that his snaps, if he stays in that 60-70% snap range and they can't run the football, he's going to be the one that they throw the football to more than your Kareem Hunt, who's going to stay into that 30-40% range. And if he's not getting the opportunity to score in the red zone because the Ravens are good and he's not getting that receiving work, then if I'm rolling out a guy expecting it would be Jerome Ford as I cancel him out. Gus Bus, probably not a Gus Bus week, getting that inside zone downhill running game. Maybe a Justice Hill week again. If they're taking away the run and they're forcing the Ravens to throw and check down, this would be the week that I would expect Justice Hill to get his. And if you're wondering about Keaton Mitchell, he's questionable with a hamstring, so he's questionable from a usage standpoint. He's questionable from a health standpoint. You make up your own mind in a bad matchup against one of the league's best defenses. Amari Cooper, you're still rolling him out as that wide receiver 2. He can get it done certain weeks, and other weeks he won't, but you're not going to be able to predict it. One of the interesting things to look at is Cedric Tillman, the beneficiary of the Donovan Peoples-Jones trade. If you're into stashing, especially from a dynasty perspective, I want to see the uptick in the snaps. And now I just want to see the opportunity to get there from that. I'm not sure that any of the Ravens wide receivers are worth rostering at this point. But that's up to you. The matchup would say don't play Zay Flowers. Also from the perspective that we're not going to be able to guess opportunity, nor are we going to be able to guess snaps, down to 68% snaps. Rashad Bateman, 57% snaps, 5 targets. Odell Beckham in garbage time, 46% snaps, 7 targets, got that touchdown. And then you see Nelson Aguilar at 55% snaps. I don't think any of them are predictive this week, but you make up your own mind. I could definitely see this being a David Njoku week. The Browns are going to have to figure out a way to generate offense. And this is kind of the opposite of the Jaguars with their Swiss Army knife tool in Evan Ingram. I could see that the Jaguars just aren't going to need to use Evan Ingram, and the Browns are going to need to use David Njoku, if that makes sense, because they're going to have to figure out a way to generate offense. So these design screens and passing plays, I can definitely see getting there for David Njoku in a way that the Jaguars won't have to do, because they'll be pushing the ball vertical down the field against a suspect San Francisco secondary. All right, Mark Andrews is always a roll regardless of the matchup, so I don't have much to say about that. And then the Browns and the Ravens, because of the game, are both rolls. I would probably be a little bit more happy to be rolling out the Ravens against Deshaun Watson than the Browns against Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson, is a fantasy cheat code and he can get home in multiple different ways. But they both are rolls. Falcons and Cardinals, a little bit of a sneaky game. If Kyler Murray is not as rusty as we thought, I could definitely see this meaning that Arthur Smith is going to have to actually play a functional, neutral script game instead of just grinding this into the ground. Wouldn't be rolling Taylor Heinicke out, at all. I don't think he's very fantasy relevant or predictive. I probably would not be rolling Kyler Murray out if I can get away with it. But again, because of the bye weeks and other reasons, I think he's a fine play with all the toys that they have. Bijan, obviously you paid for him. You're rolling him out. I just be advised that Arthur Smith is a bad football coach. So there's nothing I can do about that. Tyler Algier in this game, if they can grind the game down and you need to, again, this is just chasing opportunity. It could be a Tyler Algier week just because of bad coaching. and that's just the way they're going to use him. James Conner is trending towards playing, and to kind of prove that he is going to be playing, they released Damian Williams, the running back, the veteran running back that they've been elevating off the practice squad this week. They released him. DeMarcado is ruled out, and they haven't elevated anybody else as far as I can tell. So if you really need to be rolling somebody out because magically James Conner is not there, you have Keontae Ingram as the opportunity or as the possibility. But right now, everything is trending towards James Conner being a roll. And if he goes back to just 60% snaps, and they're the right snaps, yes, he's an absolute play this week. The only Falcons wide receiver I'd be rolling this week because Drake London is cleared to play. He'd be the only receiver that I'd be rolling out in this game. And then I'm rolling out all my shares of the Cardinals, including Michael Wilson and Hollywood Brown, because I want to see how this shakes out with Kyler Murray. And Michael Wilson and Hollywood Brown are going to be downfield guys and not those dink and duck guys. They're the guys that can win me my week. Instead of just trying to not lose me my week. Kyle Pitts, I think in this game is a role. And if you have to, so's Jonnu Smith. They're going to get their opportunities, and tight end. So Barron, sure, why not? Trey McBride, again, I'm rolling out all my toys to see how Kyler Murray shakes out. So yes, he's a play. Falcons, maybe not rolling them out against Kyler Murray. Again, I don't like unpredictability in fantasy, but from the Cardinals' perspective, if I'm in a really bad spot in a deeper league, Taylor Heineke can be a little bit of a turnover and sack machine, and the offense is unpredictable, which means that there's an opportunity for me to take advantage of that from a fantasy perspective. All right, Lions and Chargers. Jared Goff, definitely a roll this week, with the caveat that I should have my expectation tempered that with David Montgomery back, he could be getting touchdowns vultured away from David Montgomery falling in the end zone. But I do like the matchup against the Chargers. Justin Herbert, I will say that you probably paid for him, so you're rolling him out. But I've been talking about this for the last few weeks. He may end up being a very matchup dependent guy, and he may be attached to a not bad offense and not a good offense that we were hoping for. So every week that I roll him out, I have to at least pay attention to what I think the script will at least be for the game. And in this case, I could definitely see that the Lions just beat down the Chargers, and that puts Justin Herbert in a very bad situation where there's not a lot of touchdowns being thrown by him, and he doesn't have enough nibbly bimbly on a weekly basis to get me home when he doesn't throw touchdown passes. So yeah, David Montgomery, I'm rolling him out. He's healthy. He should be playing. Same thing with Jahmyr Gibbs. I think this caps their overall ceilings. I do think they have a limited floor also, because if Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are no longer going to be the guy that will get the touchdowns, it's going to be a lot harder to really know when to roll them out or not roll them out. But if they're at least getting half the work in a good offense, I think they're both rolls in that mid to low end RB2 range. So yeah, I'd be rolling them out. Just again, realizing that they're not going to win me a week, or they're not going to, excuse me. They have the ability to lose me a week, just like they have the ability to win me a week. Austin Eckler, yeah, obviously. I think you can start thinking about cuffing him with Joshua Kelly. He has looked better in recent weeks, even though I think he may have limited upside if Eckler goes down. Yeah, Sundiad, obviously I'm rolling him out. I want to be paying attention to Donovan Peoples-Jones and his snap share, and this directly relates more to Jameson Williams from a dynasty perspective, or even if you're still holding out hope that Jameson Williams is going to be a thing going forward. If Donovan Peoples-Jones just takes that away, then Jameson Williams just goes away this year. Deeper leagues, maybe Josh Reynolds. I don't know. You do you. Once you're getting into that third or fourth wide receiver range of a team, you're really hoping, instead of actually trying to be predictive. Keenan Allen, I'm rolling out every week. This is a Quentin Johnston week. From a sneaky standpoint, he would be the number 2 option in the passing game, technically the number 3 behind Eckler. But if there is a guy to get home this week, if those opportunities have to go someplace else outside of Eckler and Keenan Allen, it would be Quentin Johnston week. And I don't necessarily think that the Lions are good enough that they can take away all the toys. So if you're really desperate, this is one of the guys to be rolling out there with a potential upside, this being a breakout week. I'm still rolling out Sam Laporta. And again, when I talk about the Chargers, Gerald Everett and Donald Parham are both trending towards playing, so I'm probably not going to be rolling out either of the Chargers tight ends unless one of them's out. And the Lions, I do think, are a sneaky play against the Chargers. I do not think the Chargers are a sneaky play against the Lions. All right. The Giants and Dallas, there's not a lot to talk about in this game. The one thing I would point out, if you're really, really desperate and you really want to, needle somebody, Tommy DeVito last week against the Raiders was 15 to 20, 175 yards. So I actually have this pulled up. Jalen Hyatt last week with Tommy DeVito, 151 air yards. So when you're really desperate and you're trying to get, catch some type of lightning in a bottle, if there's a guy to be chasing in that, desperation wide receiver 2 type flex wide receiver 3 range, it is going to be Jalen Hyatt against a Dallas Cowboys secondary that has not been as good since they lost Diggs. That's all I'm going to say about that. So Dak Prescott, be advised, all the toys for the Cowboys are going to be a little bit capped because of how bad it looks like the situation is going to be for the Giants against the Cowboys defense. So that means there's maybe less opportunities to go around, especially in the passing game for the Cowboys. But the idea is that the Cowboys will throw up enough points before it becomes a really bad blowout that you can get home with your good pieces. So Dak's a roll. This isn't actually in a game where I would think about sitting Barkley, even though he's going to get this opportunity. Again, not all opportunity is the same. Opportunity may be the king of fantasy football, but again, we want the efficiency. I don't know how he's going to get home, because the biggest thing that the Cowboys defense is going to know is that they're going to try and get the ball to Saquon Barkley, and that's the guy they need to take away. That's why I would be I would rather throw a dart at Jalen Hyatt than roll out Saquon Barkley this week. Tony Pollard, you paid for him, you're rolling him out. I don't have a lot to say about him. This may be a desperation Rico Dowdle week. When they've blown up teams before, he's gotten into the picture. There is a little bit of speculation that he's going to get more of that grinder role away from Tony Pollard. So not only is he a priority cuff, he is a desperation running back to be throwing out during the bye weeks. I already talked about Jalen Hyatt. Again, CeeDee Lamb may be the wide receiver 1 overall. I'm rolling him out. If there's another guy in that desperation land to be chasing opportunity, it's Daniel Bellinger. I could see him leading the Giants in receiving this week against that Cowboys team. Those opportunities are going to have to go someplace, and the bar for tight end is rather low, so I could see that happening. And again, Jake Ferguson, I think he's a weekly role at this point. It looks like he's the number 2 in the Cowboys offense. I do like that. I would be rolling him out. So yeah. Giants, I'm obviously not rolling out the Giants defense, and the Cowboys defense is going to project as a top 10 overall fantasy scoring unit this week. All right, Redskins and Seattle. This game could turn into a shootout. I also could see that the Seahawks just beat down the Redskins. It's going to be really difficult to tell after last week. Like I talked about before with Sam Howell, if Sam Howell is your starting quarterback, then Sam Howell is your starting quarterback, and it doesn't matter what the projections are. Seattle should be able to they have a good secondary, they have a good pass rush, but I don't think that necessarily matters from what we've seen this year. So Sam Howell is a role, because all we care about is him getting this 40 to 50 passing attempts a game and the opportunity for passing touchdowns and a little bit of rushing floor. So he is a weekly role. Same thing, Geno Smith may be the streaming quarterback of the week against this Redskins secondary, and they traded away Sweat and Chase. So this is your streamer of the week, the guy that's predictive to be a top 10 streamer quarterback against the matchup. Again, I already talked about B-Rob. If B-Rob's your guy, you're just rolling him out. Pinch your nose. Don't look at the stat line. Hopefully he gets it done by falling in the end zone. Again, Antonio Gibson, if you're trying to chase game flow, this would be an Antonio Gibson week against the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker, yeah, I'm rolling him out. Same thing. If you're trying to chase game flow, I definitely could see that Zach Charbonnet is a guy that I could roll out as a desperation running back too. This would be the week that he finally gets into the end zone. I could see that happening. So if you have him as either as a stash and you need to roll him out, I could see it happening. If if you just need to be rolling a guy out, it could be his week. Or even if you're not trying to just roll a guy out and you're just trying to chase this opportunity, I could see it being there. against, again, the matchup would say bad defense in a situation where the game can turn into a little bit of a shootout. Again, Terry McLaurin, I'm rolling him out. Be advised, as we talk about this a little bit further, Curtis Samuel may or may not play this week. That would probably change my opinion on Johan Dotson. If Samuel's out, I probably would be okay with rolling Dotson. If Samuel plays, I probably would not be. I talked about this before with Seattle right now. I'm probably paid for DK Metcalf. I'm rolling him out, especially in this matchup, but I just don't know how these targets are going to go between him, Lockett, and Njigba and Bobo. But I would be rolling out DK. I would be rolling out Lockett, and I would be rolling out JSN. Again, the guy that I would not be rolling out this week is Bobo, because I think one of these guys is going to get home, and I want to make sure I have at least one of them in my lineup. Again, this fantasy football is a little bit like gambling. Logan Thomas, definitely a roll this week because of what it looks like the game script's going to be. If the other guys are, if he's the beneficiary of the Seahawks trying to take away the wide receivers, Logan Thomas could get home. Washington Commanders, definitely not rolling them. Seattle Seahawks are a top streamer based off the matchup. Jets and Raiders, I'm going to stay away from as many of these toys as I could roll out. This probably projects to be a very ugly script. Zach Wilson, so I'm not rolling Zach Wilson out. If I can, Aiden O'Connell, they're probably not going to ask Aiden O'Connell to do a lot because they're not going to ask Zach Wilson to do a lot, which means that neither team is going to be trying to really score points. They're going to hope the other team screws up. I'm still rolling out Breece Hall because of that ridiculous usage. Same thing with Josh Jacobs. In the case of Jacobs, I could definitely see that even though the Jets are good on defense and they may take away the run, he will be the beneficiary and potentially the leading receiver for the Raiders. So this, I could definitely put Josh Jacobs really high on my list. Same thing with Garrett Wilson. Ridiculous usage downfield. That's all I care about. He's a roll. If you're worried about Devontae Adams against the Jets and Sauce Gardner, I don't know. You paid for him. Do you have the guts to sit him? This would be a week to say yes. I probably don't want any pieces of the Raiders passing game against the Jets. That means I'm not rolling out Jacoby Myers. Michael Mayer, again, because the bar is so low at the tight end position, I could be rolling him out. And I don't have Conklin up here. But again, if you are really desperate, I could see rolling some of these guys out there. But Michael Mayer's in play because of the situation. And again, if you're wondering why, when you're looking at a guy getting 91% snaps and 88% snaps, and the other team is going to do things like take away Devontae Adams and Michael Mayer, or excuse me, Jacoby Myers, guys like Michael Mayer and Josh Jacobs, those targets tend to end up going to tight ends and running backs. So that's where in this game, that's why I would be looking in that direction. The Jets are a play against the rookie, and the Raiders are a play against Zach Wilson. Raiders being one of the more priority streamers. All right. Broncos and Buffalo. I think this game could be another sneaky shootout. So this is definitely a week to be gambling that Russell Wilson can get it done against Buffalo defense that has been disappointing. And their secondary hasn't been as good with all the injuries. They can't stop the run. So I do like Russell Wilson as a streamer. Josh Allen, obviously, elite, rolling him out. Javonte Williams, I talked about him earlier this week. This is a week to be rolling him out and expecting a high upside for him. I would be paying attention to Leonard Fournette if I was thinking about rolling out James Cook. If Leonard Fournette is active, I would take a good long look about James Cook not being my play this week. Let's see. Cortland Sutton, again, the Buffalo Bills have been disappointing on defense. So that puts Sutton and Judy. And even if I have to get deeper, because we can't always trust coach speak, but the coaches said that they do want to get Marvin Mims more involved. So if I'm chasing certain things, the tea leaves are saying me that all of the Buffalo Bills wide receivers are in play this week. I'm still rolling out Stephon Diggs. I could definitely see this being a get right game for Gabe Davis after this 2-target no catch game last week against Cincinnati. So I would be rolling out my Gabe Davis shares. If you're really concerned about where these other targets are going to go outside Stephon Diggs, who is listed as questionable now with the back, you can start looking at a Khalil Shakur as being in play this week. Again, if we're trying to predict patterns, the Broncos started the season as one of the most horrific defenses of all time. They've sort of turned it around against some teams that we haven't expected to turn around. And if those targets need to go someplace, that would put Khalil Shakir in line to be thought about. But I would tend to think that Dalton Kincaid's going to be the guy that gets home this week more so than anybody else. I would say he's a top 5 overall tight end play. The Broncos defense, believe this or not, is a streaming option against the turnover machine of Josh Allen. And after what the Broncos did to Patrick Mahomes in quote unquote the flu game, I could definitely see the Broncos being a sneaky play against a turnover machine. Rolling out defenses against turnover machines are never necessarily a bad idea. And the Buffalo Bills against the Broncos on paper are a good roll, but they've been disappointing all you, so you make up your own mind on that. And is that it? Am I all done? Looks like it. So anyway, I think that's about it for the week. I've gone through everybody. And so if you guys want to get out of here, you can. For those of you that are a little curious about my thoughts about the Panthers and Bears game, I did watch this live. Whatever's going on in Carolina, until they can get some better coaching and some better weapons, it's going to be very hard to evaluate Bryce Young in this game. They don't have a running game. They don't really have receivers. The ghost of Adam Thielen, from a fantasy perspective, I would be selling at this point. They can't push the ball vertically down the field, which means that they know what they're going to do with Adam Thielen, which means they can just take away Adam Thielen on the underneath routes. That's going to be a continued problem down the line. So you got what you got out of him, and I wouldn't be expecting that you're going to be able to predict if and when he will ever give you any other time about that. And then from the running back perspective, even though Chuba Hubbard got a majority of the work, he was still splitting time with Blackshear and Sanders. And more importantly, it's a bad offense, which means that there's going to be less opportunity to fall into the end zone in the red zone. And these guys are just not entirely being used in the passing game enough as an individual player. Because again, you can see that Chuba Hubbard's there, Miles Sanders and Blackshear. Again, if they were one guy, they'd be a high-end running back 2, low-end running back 1 with that receiving floor, even against a bad offense. But since they're 3 guys getting the passing work out of the backfield, they become fantasy irrelevant at this point. And then outside of Adam Thielen now falling into that wide receiver 3 range, because he's basically just one of those inefficient slots. The other guys, like I've been talking about, if they can figure out Jonathan Mingo, 7 targets, that's the thing. And I did hear that they do like this Mike Strachan that did have the 1 for 45. So that's at least a little bit worth monitoring if they can get him pushing down the field vertically. That might open up some of the other players. I don't know how much fantasy relevance he's going to have. From the Bears perspective, I did watch JT O'Sullivan's quarterback school on Tyson Bagent. I'm rooting for the kid. I think there's a little bit of talent there. He's coming from D2. It's a huge jump. Did miss a lot of stuff. And maybe this is the last game that we're going to have to deal with him from the Bears standpoint. He does hurt the toys after watching this with DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. This would be an upgrade with Justin Fields. Justin Fields would at least make these guys boom bust instead of just low floor guys at this point. And then Deontay Foreman, I don't know how relevant he's going to be with Herbert potentially coming back next week. And then outside of fantasy, I just don't think it's going to be a Roschon year going forward. But yeah, those are my thoughts, and hopefully this helps you set your lineup.